Boom, there we go. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Vagabond Dog Industry Chats. This week we have Joseph and Christopher on from YCJY Games, creators of the surprisingly amazing Post Void, which I have been playing pretty nonstop since its release. I had a bit of an addiction to the leaderboard until I got completely shut out as the game has grown in popularity. I don't know if I'll ever be able to climb back on the top, but welcome to the show, guys. It's great having you here.
Thanks.
Thanks for
Yeah.
having us.
Yeah, I'm Joseph, and that's Christoph.
I'm Christopher.
Yeah. And thank you guys for coming on. Now I know you guys are in Sweden, and it is an ungodly hour over there. But I mean, are you guys night owls, or do you try and keep a 9 to 5 schedule?
Joseph is a night owl,
Yeah, I'm definitely.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm not really. But I vary. I'm flexible.
Yeah.
I try to get up early, but I haven't been going up early lately. But,
Do you find that's just like the stress pattern of launch that like completely deviates your schedule or your ability to make a schedule, or is that just like, are you very very loosey goosey with your existence?
This has been like this year has been. I'm been loosey goosey. I had it all like packed up in a little like safe box before, but now I'm a loosey goose.
See,
This
I
this
try
release
to,
hasn't
like,
really
get-
been that
get to bed
stressful
early.
either.
no,
Oh,
yeah.
that's the weird thing.
So I'm gonna drop the link to the game itself in the chat right now. I encourage everybody to go check that out. Can you tell us a bit about the launch? Or first, I guess if in your own words, I would describe this game as an insanely fast first-person shooter with a lot of I guess at this point vintage inspirations. But can you tell the audience what is Post Void?
Christopher's pretty good at usually explaining.
It sums it up very good. Like that's how we describe it, like adrenaline fueled, super fast game, and like not Kevin Bacon, Francis Bacon meets like Doom or whatever. And a lot of people like to compare it with Hotline Miami, I guess, which is I get it because it's very like high adrenaline and like a bit psychedelic and stuff. Yeah.
Just to like add to that, sorry,
There you
like
go.
we definitely say that it's an arcade shooter.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I think that's like an important
Score
point to
attack
make
is the
because of
most
like
important
how
part.
it's the score. There's also like the little element of randomization and like how quick the pace is. Like you lose a round really quickly. So it's more about that like, oh, one more try thing than it is I'm gonna beat the game.
Right.
Yeah.
That was absolutely like a big part of like what got me like really, for lack of a better word, stuck in it. Like that very frustrating point of failure, but the ease of getting back into it and like knowing that there's the opportunity for improvement like one step away, which is one of those things I really appreciate in games.
That's something that we learned from like watching Downwell.
Downwell.
Playing
that
Downwell. Yeah.
That would be our biggest inspiration for this game, actually. Downwell.
Really? That's
Yeah.
that's very surprising. Because I would have never put those two together. But you guys played a lot of Downwell, and it was like it was just it just the are you
None of us have beaten Downwell.
No,
None of us had beaten it, but we still thought the game was really good and very fun. So there had to be something there, right? Like, and we always wanted to go for one more try.
Yeah, it was
Right.
But
it
we're
was
so
that.
bad at it still. But it's fun to lose in the game, and if it's fun to lose in the game, then I mean they gotta be doing something.
Good game.
right.
Yeah.
So like I had a game release earlier this year, and since it shipped, I've been slowly getting back into playing games. I kind of abstained for a long time, and one of the things that I kind of like made a promise to myself was like, I'm not going to play games that have that sort of like infinite chase or multiplayer heavy games, or I need something that I can like definitively beat and
Yeah.
walk away from at some stage. And when I first started Post Void, I was like really scared that it was going to be one of these infinity games, but it, I mean, it isn't overwhelmingly long. So was it your intention to, like, what was your expectation for players in terms of like how long they were going to play this game? Before, did you have any idea of like how the skill growth would go and like how long it would take people to get good and get to the end?
I mean, we thought that there's always those people who like get it and just gets it and beat it immediately, but we felt like none of our friends who we like tried the game on, I don't think any of them beat the game, but the two of us could beat it pretty like consistently when we made it, but we didn't
Yeah.
really have a time in mind, I don't think.
I think because we tried one of my roommates actually, he's really good at Counter-Strike. Like he plays with pros, and he played I think the first week, like we had maybe the first
like
iteration of the
early
game,
days.
and like I just took notes like while he was playing, and we had this at that point we didn't have an end to the game because we were thinking like, oh, we're gonna do it so that you can play as long as you want and get the highest score. But we realized that that's not that fun. Like people that are as good as him, or like if you just find a good way of playing, you're just gonna like keep going, and then you're gonna try to like optimize the way to keep going as long as possible,
Right.
instead of finding the way that we wanted you to play, which is as fast and intense as possible.
Right.
Yeah, and then I think the main reason also, aside from like not having it endless, to just keep it at 10 levels or like 11 levels that we ended up with, was that it was really hard to balance the difficulty over a certain level. So it was like, beyond this level of difficulty, it's not fun to play the game anymore. Or like, it's too many enemies on the screen.
It's too
Right.
random.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was one of the decisions.
I mean, talking about the randomization in the game, it's something that absolutely fascinated me the more I played it. Because for those of you who haven't given it a shot yet, it's almost like a very compressed Doom corridor that you're in, and it slowly starts adding more different kinds of enemies at it, but also levels, right? Going jumping up a level, and also the width of the parameters for the procedurally generated environment seems to also get bigger. I wanted to ask you guys a bit about the process of like designing that, I get for algorithm, designing the procedural level design, because getting lost in the maze of it is something that happens very early on in the game, but the more you play it, it becomes very clear that forward path is always like sort of there. And so I'm very, very curious to learn about how you guys charted out that path always being there. Like, you can get as technical as you want in this stage. I'm very curious to hear about.
Yeah.
Before Christopher gets technical about it, I'm just going to show you a picture I saw today. This was like on our first notes for the first day.
Okay.
This was the idea. You see like that little snake, or kind of like, and we were just like, a level could probably look a bit like that as long as it's going forward.
Right.
Yeah. But
that was stupid.
I think I'm also very happy and a little bit surprised with how like clear it is on where you're supposed to go in the levels. And I think it's like one of the main reason it is like that. I have never done procedural generation on levels before. I'm not even sure like what the technical terms of what actually procedurally generation is, like the definition of it. But my idea was to like, the whole level is like a grid, right? Like every like Doom corridor is made of like one line of boxes, one after each other. And my idea was, okay, so I want to have a randomized path from point A to point B through this grid. And I started out without keeping verticality in mind. And I just made like a kind of a little line of code that just ate through a path, just like a line through the whole thing, and it had to turn sometimes, so it couldn't just never be a straight line. So it had to, after a certain amount of steps, it had to turn or do something weird. And then I added some noise in that thing, but never too much noise, so there's always the clear path. And that's basically it. Then I added verticality, so it goes up and down sometimes, and I added some fail safe, so it couldn't go up and then immediately down. It had to like check if it's so it couldn't be like an impossible path in any way.
Right.
That's basically the code. So it's pretty simple, I would say, and I didn't know any other way to do it, and it worked out in a way that there's always this like straight path that you can always go through.
Right.
That was a core concept, or like from the beginning, we were thinking like the goal has to be as really clear.
Yeah, and then also I added there's some more complex. I added rooms as well, and some of them they're like they can have a randomized width and height, and some of them have pillars in the middle of them, but always only if there are space to have a middle, because some rooms are like only 2 squares.
Right.
So you can't have a pillar there.
But it's kind of crazy. Like in like Act 3, some of the levels that get generated, like some of the rooms, they look like they're made by hand or like designed.
That's also some of those
like
rooms are a bit more weird.
Like there's
as well,
sometimes there's 2 ways that you can go. Like you can go the bottom way or you can go to the top way, and you can jump past. Like it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I'm always
some
surprised by it.
complexity there, because then I just make a huge room, and I made like some variables say that you have this like path going through the room, right? That's the first thing I start with. Then I place rooms on different places in this path, and some of these rooms I say, okay, instead of building like a pillar or something, like do stuff around the path.
Okay.
To like distort it, and it's like a bit hard to explain exactly, but I went through some like weird experiment in my different loops, and I said like, oh, beside the path, just add some blocks here, and that's what makes those rooms become a bit weird, I guess. But I always wanted to make sure as well that the path was clear.
So in absolute layman's terms, the computer first like pretends itself is the player and just carves the path, and then excess rooms are added kind of chaotically via the noise. And then the bigger rooms are layered on top in at any point within, but it's still never as long as it doesn't intercede, that doesn't break the existing path. Okay.
Yeah, so I had some before it was perfected. There was some places when I added verticality where it could lead to impossible like stairways. Like the path could go like up, but then I just emptied the whole room. So the next way was like way up. You couldn't jump there.
Right.
That's why I made even more noise in the levels, because first I did a kind of a stairway down, which looked very like unnatural, not as cool. So I did more of a like how do I say it, like a carved out with like a Minecraft style, I guess.
Right.
The blocks to go into the rooms, but yeah, that's the gist of it. You like, carve a path. I add some noise. I add big rooms with some like distinct features in them, and that's it.
And I'm curious. So if this is the first time you've ever made a game that relies on procedural generation, how does that feel? How does your sense of authorship or ownership or control over the game change when you kind of surrender yourself to the machine?
I mean, like the code.
Yeah. I mean,
like that there's no like level design.
I mean, there's a lot like there's a constant debate, like some people really like and appreciate games that have procedural elements to them. Other people like always want everything must be the artist must always be in the frame or whatever. How do you feel about that difference?
Well, as making most of the levels for our last game by hand, it was
the one before
time I had. Yeah, and the game before that. Yeah, I guess I'm the level designer. The designing levels can be extremely fun and very creative, but it can become extremely tedious, which was what it was in our last game. And I actually felt more creative designing the procedural code in this game than I was designing the last levels in Seasalt. Then it was just like, oh, I need like 10 more levels. They're just gonna get made, and I had to do them. Where in here, there was like the procedural code was more like something that evolved during the whole process. I could go back to it. There was at one point we were like, oh, we can't add more enemies. We can't higher the difficulty in any fun way. We went like, why did we make the levels harder themselves? Add more verticality to them. Add more like weird stuff. And we did that, and that eventually became the thing that made the later levels more hard in the game. So yeah, I'd say I'm very proud of like as an author of those levels.
The procedural generation becomes part of the gameplay so much that it's not just because we wanted to like have it randomized or something. It's actually a big part of it. So without it, it wouldn't be this. If we'd sat and like leveled it out, people just learned it and it wouldn't be as good. And like as Christopher said,
it's more trial and error for this game.
Yeah.
It just became trial and error if you knew every enemy and every placement. So, but I agree that for some games, like handmade maps are just better.
Right.
I can understand people's like opinion about being against procedural generation.
Right. I mean, I definitely also appreciate the restraint. It only has the 11 levels. You guys like we've got a procedurally generated game, but we push that like to the limit. There's infinite levels in that, and it's a lot of. I mean, it's also a really fun part of the game. But I absolutely appreciate the restraint of like utilizing the procedural generation, but not making it an infinite experience, which is wonderful, and part of the reason why I enjoyed it so much, knowing that there was a definitive goal and a definitive end to it.
I think that's a little.
Hear.
Yeah, that's great. It's just that the whole like infinite thing. I think like for us, it gives always it always changes what you're expecting for the run to be, so it doesn't become that, as Christopher said, like you memorize it. So
Right.
there is, I mean, it becomes infinite, obviously, but not like in the length, not in.
Yeah,
like,
you have infinite 11
yeah, exactly.
level games.
Right. So the procedural design, did that come in like when you showed from that first sketch? Was that intended? Intended to be a procedural game then, or were you guys thinking about at any point of making this a linear experience? Yeah, I guess a linear experience as you had that line.
I remember us talking about having like, because we were talking about like making a FPS game, not very fast one, and we were also thinking about being inspired by racing games. So I remember one of our first ideas had like racing tracks, kind of, and
Yeah.
Joseph, you had an idea that it would be like a track, but every time you ran around it, like the Silent Hills, like PT, like the demo thing, that it would change every time, but it would be like the same stage and stuff like that. So we had some ideas, I think, for.
Yeah, exactly. It was like they're supposed to just run around and like reach checkpoints, like old school racing games.
Right.
And like your time, you get like 12 seconds added to your time, and you have to just be faster and faster to beat, or like try to keep into the loop. But it eventually becomes almost impossible.
Right.
Yeah, and we lost more and more like of the racing inspirations in the game as we developed it.
Right, and the speed runners will fulfill in that gap, no problem.
Yeah, we are now.
So then, when did the Joseph? I assume you do most of the art for the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. When and how did the visual aesthetics start to develop for the game?
It was Kevin Bacon inspired. No, I'm kidding. It's Francis Bacon.
Francis.
I'm kidding. No, it was because I don't know. It was just like I draw a lot with ink, and so I always wanted to make like a game that kind of looks like my drawings by hand.
Okay. Your drawings
And so
look like
then-
a bunch of blinding lights and flashing colors all the time, or
I wish. No, it's just they're
Some of your
almost black and
pictures,
white.
like
But
lying around.
yeah, here, like
I see.
there's
yes.
one.
That's post void. That's post void.
Yeah, it's post void.
Yeah,
That was
it's
actually
the cover image.
that's actually not post. That's an enemy that I was thinking maybe we could add, but it never became an enemy.
Yeah, but I mean, like your style is very much like that.
Yeah. So then it was that, and then I saw I went in Dublin. I was at a museum with Francis Bacon, or like his art was there, and his studio, and that just kind of like opened up my mind to like bright colors. So I always painted with black and white ink, or just black ink, and then I just saw that I was like, oh man, this is incredible. I want to try. I want to do something like this. That, and then I was also another painter that inspired me. I can't remember the name right now. But yeah, he's a pretty famous guy. I can't just don't remember it.
So
Whatever.
that's a lot of the enemy design, and I guess the hands. But in terms of like, when was the exact moment you guys decided to like layer so many visual effects on top of the experience? Because
was, like,
that's
from the
what
beginning.
drew
I
me
think
in
you said
immediately.
you wanted bloom quite.
What?
I think Joseph, you said you wanted bloom in the game quite early.
Yeah,
Like,
I was
Can you
no
make
like
bloom? Can you
I
make a bloom
I,
shader?
I think I even said that before we made the idea for what the game was. I was like, can we have bloom in a game? Like I was asking Christopher, is bloom possible in? Can we do bloom in Game Maker?
Right.
I want
And I
bloom.
hadn't done one, but our friend Jonathan, like who you probably knows as well, is very good with shaders. But I didn't ask him for help on the bloom shader though. I did my own bloom shader. But yeah, I got
It's
very
Jonathan
inspired
from
by
Halamemi.
yeah, Jonathan Söderström, like Cactus. Yeah, he's very good with shaders. And he had a very cool bloom shader in something I can't talk about. But yeah, I looked at that and I was like, it shouldn't be too hard. And I had seen his code sometimes, so I promised Joseph a bloom shader,
Yeah.
and he got a bloom shader.
I'm very happy about that. But yeah, that
And
that
then-
was actually like the effects are. It's the bloom shader. Then there's like saturation, and then like I from the beginning also I wanted a fish eye,
Mhm.
like
Oh,
or like
yeah,
I was,
didn't.
and that didn't really work. But instead, what we did was like we would raise the field of view, or like so that it kind of like has
Right.
a little bit of fish eye feeling. But yeah, so it was just like, yeah, that was pretty much it. And then the shooting, we like Christopher was
Your
talking about a long
colors-
time. You were talking about a long
Your
time ago, like
colors
you
were
wanted
very
like when you're
bright
shooting.
to begin with.
Oh yeah. I always use the bright,
Oh,
like I
yeah.
wanted to use the brightest orange.
Right.
Oh, yeah, the lens flare. I remember because I had an idea a long time ago, before I even knew if we could make an FPS in Game Maker or not, that I wanted to have a game where it was like in Alien 2, like Aliens, when they're shooting with those big machine guns, and there's like the whole screen just it becomes like a strobe light when you're shooting, and it's just a bunch of aliens coming over there. I wanted a game that had that kind of a feel to it, that you were in a tight corridor and there were a bunch of small aliens or whatever coming towards you, and you can see in between. It's super dark, but when you shoot, you can see like flashes, like strobes,
Right.
and you can just shoot them when they come. Can you see it? Can you see it in your head?
Yeah, I see. It's like they become slow motion because of the strobe. It gets like that
Right, yeah.
stereoscopic effect.
I mean, I remember telling you, and you were like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, I
So
was like
we got-
super
we got
into it.
it.
Yeah.
But we
And
never
like,
did. Maybe
we
one
we,
day.
we
Maybe
no, we
one
did
day.
it in no transmission.
Yeah,
that's
but
when we
not
were like-
with-
Not in the same way, but that was the first time we tried it. We're like, oh, how does this like? How can we change the contrast? So like when you
yeah, it's
shoot,
true.
it just like blows up the contrast for everything.
Yeah. I just played No Transmission today for the first time before earlier this morning when I found out about it, because I was very curious about like how much of the you know, I guess it's your other first person Doom like much more Wolfenstein like it does, or Doom like there's no mouse controller, or it's very
No
very
aiming or
very
anything,
traditional. how much of the design transferred over. But before we get in there, one of the things I really appreciated about the visual effects you guys added to the game is that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but every single one of them is in service of communicating some game information. There is the effect that happens when you get a headshot. There's the lines that come in when you're sliding. There's the bloom and oversaturation when you're getting touched. I mean, the field of view and the grain are kind of like just ambient things, but
No, the field of view is not ambient.
What do you mean?
It's like it when we changed the field of, like, we had a much lower field of view before, and then we had an upgrade for field of view, so that it raises it, and like, and like every time I played, I was always picking the field of view upgrade because it was just more fun. I didn't pick it because it was better. I just picked it because it was more fun playing with it. And then we're like, wait, that's so stupid. We'll just make that the actual, like, how it
make
is.
that normal.
Yeah, if that's more like, that's we always thinking like that. Like,
but
whatever's
like
more fun.
It doesn't ever change though in the game, so it's ambient now, I guess, when there's no upgrade.
But it is an intent. But I guess at this, in the design process, at some point you made the conscious decision to be like, no, this communicates something about the game, where it I guess it does feed more, visual information to the player. If you have a wider field of view, you can technically see more.
Yeah.
I think it's it's kind of a very obvious thing to understand as a designer, but for a lot of our viewers who aren't designers, can you talk about the importance of not just throwing it? Like, I mean, it's very easy to assume that this game is just like, let's just throw fucking everything into this visually into it, but the importance of like having everything communicate something, because when the game does get absolutely crazy, relying on these little bits of visual information are what help you survive.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of, it's hugely in combination with the sound effects.
Oh yeah.
At least in my opinion, that's how, like, I think any kind of feedback.
Yeah, you're right, definitely.
And like, one thing I remember us talking about a lot about was like the blood. As you mentioned the headshot. That was like really important from the beginning. Just when you get a headshot, you gotta know it's a headshot. It's gotta feel good, and it's gotta be even clear from like a distance. So we were talking about how we, like, the further you are away, we actually, like, I think the sprite for the blood was we wanted to have it stretches, so it's actually bigger, which wouldn't look good if you see it up close, but from far away it still looks good. It's just because it gives you, at least you see it, because you wouldn't even see it otherwise. And it's these kind of things that
attention to be like, yeah, I got that headshot.
Yeah,
even though it's super far away.
Like, you want that little puff, the cloud of blood.
Yeah, I remember you made it like an extra, like, bigger one, because you made a smaller one, and then you made it like this is a good one.
Yeah, I made so there's like three. I think there's the blood that comes out, and then I made it like a slow animation. That's like rain. So when it comes out, it like comes like this, and then just pours like that. And that, because it lasts longer.
In like half a second.
Yeah, it happens really quickly, but
also, like, in the game, but it's very detailed. It's very detailed, all these effects that Joseph did.
As a designer, though, how do you know or decide what elements are the most important to communicate to the player? I mean, the headshot's pretty obvious because it's like, headshots are always fun, but also it's like really integral to like being good at the game. How did you guys decide which elements deserve their own visual effect in order to service the player's ability?
I think it was a lot of like just trying and redoing and trying and retrying to like just to get what's right, because that was something that we didn't have very good in the start. Like, we didn't have a very good damage effect or a sound with it either, and we didn't. A lot of people had a hard time, and I think it's still not super easy, but that's like part of the game, I guess, to see, like, in your left hand you have the head with your health, and Joseph had the idea that the less health you had, the closer the skull hand goes to the center of the screen. So, and if you have it full, it's down here, but it goes like slowly back to the middle of the screen, which I think was a really smart like move to get to get you to notice that. And we added the splash effects, the white splash that comes on the screen, which happens when you take damage, uh, along with the distortion, like the saturation stuff, and it just added up. I think I
Yeah,
think it's we
it was. I
definitely
mean,
thought about it a lot, but it just we just thought about it enough. I think we just had got back to it, got back to it, got back to it, and
but
we didn't
I
test it.
play
So, yeah.
like I play FPS games pretty often, and like I always like when we were making it, I was always kind of taking notes. So it was more about like noticing, oh, this is cool, like this is needed, and like then we talk and like see like how do we implement it into the game that it makes sense. Like when we didn't have blood on the screen when you had the knife,
Mm.
and then I played Metro Exodus, and like the knife kills were just really cool. And I was like, we gotta have blood on the screen. Like that's obvious. Not when I see it. And it was just kind of that learning process of just playing games that are good, or at least that I like.
Yeah, and then like I can't. Did we have any like effects that we removed because they were too much? I think we had some. We had definitely had more screen shake when we took damage,
Yeah.
and like
Oh
screen
yeah,
shake
a lot
overall,
more.
which we toned down because there's already so much else going on. Um, yeah, like, I can't think of any like major thing that we removed, but we were kind of careful, I guess, with adding effects.
Yeah, we were definitely like, we didn't like you were talking about how, or you were saying that how we do it as design, like the design thought for someone who maybe isn't a designer, to know like how we
Yeah.
think. Um, it's just like feeling, and then like, and I think because we play a lot of games, and then the ones that we feel like, oh, this is good, or like well done, we just try to kind of copy it.
Yeah.
Uh,
I wish I had a better answer than that as well, but
yeah,
yeah, just
That's what you
reiterating,
got.
playing over and over and over and over
yeah,
and over again, and
Well,
like just
and
get a feel for what you have to
um,
convey, like graphically and sound wise.
now is this playtesting process just you guys, or you have a like it's you have a group of friends that you send it to, or like because it's something that like I imagine you can get blind to really quickly if you're not you guys are either like prestigious level playtesters who can do this, or or you have
it
are you
was pretty much, it was us two.
Yeah,
Uh,
we had some friends, but mostly it was just two of us.
it was
We like
my
showed it
roommate
to our
that I
friends a
said,
bunch of times. Like we have this new build.
yeah,
right?
and then right at the end we showed it to our friend Murray, and he played a bunch, but
Oh
it was
yeah,
pretty much like right before the end of the game was going to be released. So
Right.
yeah. We should have tested more, I think, but we were lucky
yeah, I
now.
think we lucked out there,
But
but we don't.
I mean, definitely because our main problems with our previous games has typically been we haven't tested them enough, and they're
Right.
either too difficult or like we could have gotten more feedback. But this time, I think what helped us a lot. It was a very short project. Our plan was to work only 10 weeks on it. It ended up in 20 weeks, but in those in those last
Games.
10, like the extra 10 weeks, we had a very core idea what we wanted the game to be pretty fast, and then we had a complete version of that game that was kind of shitty, pretty fast as well. Then we just reiterated for the rest of the project, and just like play the game every day. Oh, we need this, we need this, we need this, we need that. This is too bad. This, and just tweaked stuff um, until we
It
were
was kind
like,
of the same with
now
the
it's great.
enemies. It was like, we wanted this like a main imp kind of character that can act as like, or be the main antagonist, and then from that like central core, we just wanted to add like the important parts that push the game to the what we wanted it to be, like how we wanted people to play.
Right. It's
Uh,
there's I mean there's obviously a lot of benefits to having like a very public process, which is something I've been stepping into a lot more than I have previously. But I mean, one of the great or benefits of doing it the way you guys did is you guys were able to just drop this game on the public and like there was no build up. There was no expectation. And it just kind of like I came across I was just on Twitter one day, and like I just see this crazy looking video. I go, the game is so cheap, how could you not buy it, right? And then the next thing I know, I've sunk almost 10 hours into this thing already. What is that process like? I mean, I've only ever done big trumpets and fanfare ahead of my game. What is it like to just like surprise the world with something like this?
I would say it was very
Yeah,
fun.
it was really fun.
It's fun.
But I mean,
Yeah, it was fun. It was also less stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, in some weird way, because we had a set release date for a long time, and we knew that we were going to release it, and our game was done, and most of the time we just played it until release.
Yeah.
And we were quite confident in like either people will like this kind of game, because we were happy. We were very happy with the game. We had fun with it, and either people like what we do or people don't. And I also think there was a bit of luck with that it picked up very very well on Twitter, because we didn't have much of a strategy really. We just gonna release the game, and we did. But it was I don't think we would do this with a bigger project, since it was such a small. This was like a project we made for ourselves mostly, because it was very hard working on our last game, and we needed like a break, just getting to make games again, because it's fun to make games and not make this huge product or something.
Right, they can forget
our
that
last game wasn't
sometimes.
huge. It was huge for us, but yeah. So that was like the main. We didn't even know if the product that we were making was going to be sellable. I mean, it might be really bad. So we decided like halfway through, I think, that let's sell it, because we were thinking about like either just keeping it to ourselves, or just releasing it for free, or not having it as like a
we were at one point like we were actually just talking about it. It's like let's not even release it. Let's have this be our own game. And then we're like, because and then after we were playing a while, I was like, this is actually really fun.
We didn't want to have the press of actually releasing a game, which helped us make a good game, which is insane actually. Because we wanted it was a game we made for us. So we didn't have any marketing plans or anything like that in the beginning. And then when we decided to release the game, it made sense to just drop it and just try to do some half-assed campaign before, and we wanted the game out as soon as possible as well, because we were hyped. We were hyped on our game.
And I feel like in hindsight, a lesson that can be learned from it. I was talking to another roommate that because it's such a fast and like intense game, that if we had showed it before, people would probably get bored of like seeing like before being able to play it themselves.
Right.
Or
there isn't much more to show than the insanity.
No, and that. Not only, but I was gonna like when you watch it, it's not the same as playing it, and I think it helped a lot. People actually just like immediately getting their hands on it and be like, wow, this actually feels really good, not just looks cool or whatever. I think that was really important.
How important do you think your existing credentials and fan base was to making a surprise launch a success? Like if this was your first game, I have strong doubts that it would have worked.
No, I don't think so.
No, I think it helps a lot, definitely. Especially on Twitter, where I think Twitter was the main place where it like really took off. And it's because we've been in the business for like 5 years now. And we've gotten to know a lot of people, and like Ditto did a like surprise, like he kind of tweeted about it before we were supposed to release the game, and he removed that tweet. But even before he removed the tweet, it got so many like likes and retweets and stuff. So we had that like little big toe dipped into the social media thing, which gave us even more confidence to do this. But it showed us that, like, yeah, the friends that we made are in this like huge social media, whatever, like me. I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it helps. It helps.
No,
It definitely helps.
like it's just like we've gone from going to like the game festivals and knowing people and all that. Like they were kind of like we have friends in the industry and they have their own like mostly all of them have bigger followings than we do.
Yeah.
But the fact that we know them helped us like
Right.
use their fan base as well.
Yeah,
in
we
that way.
even used their quotes on our
Yeah,
trailer.
that was actually like like from the like 2 weeks before the release, I was thinking like, oh, how is the best way to like promote this game without people like without having the before thing? Like, how do we need to get maybe we need to get people that have these credentials already. So we got like our friend Dennis who made Hotline Miami to like write a quote for us. And we had our friend Yuan write or he just wrote to me and like I just asked him if like after he played the game and I asked him, can I use this quote? Because it was an honest
That
quote.
was a genuine quote.
Yeah.
Genuine quote.
And like Niklas as well and Dito from Goner as well. Like they were all genuine quotes
Niklas
except
one didn't make it though.
no, Niklas didn't make it. So and like I don't know if that helps, but maybe like from people seeing like Raw Fury or Hotline Miami on the trailer,
Right.
it gives a little bit like, oh, there's some kind of like
Credibility.
I trust these
credibility.
people.
Yeah.
So I played No Transmission. It's the only other first person project you work. Are a lot of the post Void players typical fans of yours or typical players of yours or
I have no idea.
I think most of them are new people because
Yeah.
this is very different from our other games. Our other games are also in different genres, except No Transmission.
Right.
But it was a small game jam title where we just experimented, I guess. But I don't think any of our game jam titles have any big followings, or at least I don't think like huge. But I think some people from Sea Salt and Aquatic might have tried Post Void, but I think most of the people are new.
We
have
like our
people.
at least our Twitter followers like doubled.
Right.
So, or I don't know if it, but like it was definitely more, or like no. So it's probably a lot of new players, I think. But yeah, it's very different. Like the games are really different. So I think people are like they wanted to try. I guess they just wanted to try it. It's cheap.
You're right.
I mean, people also like different kind of games. I like some FPS games, but I also like puzzle games, and I also like all kind of games.
So
I think a lot of people, especially indie gamers, are like have broader tastes in genres.
The price point was definitely a big factor in like me making it an instant buy, and I mean, like in the it's weird. I went through this period where I was like, in the midst of playing it, I was like, oh no, this game could have been $20, and then by the time I finished it, I was like, I mean, it's still a very very cheap price, but I was like, oh okay, I get it. This is what the game is, and it's like not overreaching. What kind of conversations did you guys have when you decided to go for like the super low price on Steam?
I mean, we were thinking about releasing it for free first, so that's where we started, I guess. But then we had some, like, I don't know, that wasn't because I mean
that was really early.
Like, it was very early before we felt like if the game could even, it basically went from let's keep the game to ourselves to let's release it to free, or no, well, let's actually make a commercial product out of it. And when we made the decision to make a commercial product out of it, that's when we put in like the extra 10 weeks, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, yeah.
And like the price. I mean, it just felt right. Like we didn't want it to be too like a $5 game. We were looking at other games, like what are they? Like what prices are there? We were thinking about like aquatic adventure and as well like sea salt. Okay, sea salt was a big game. It took us 2 years. There's quite a lot of content and depth to like the things you can do there, and then I guess there is in Postwood too. But and then aquatic, it was $10. It was kind of like the standard for indie games at the time. And because we didn't have the initial, like we didn't have any kind of marketing before, we were kind of hoping for those spontaneous buys and for people to spontaneously buy it and then kind of enjoy themselves because they didn't invest too much time or effort or like thought to it, and then it's just like, oh, this is cool. Like, and like
yeah, and I feel like if we'd taken more, maybe we'd get worse response because like the game could feel not worth the price.
Right.
I just checked. We have the same price as Downwell as well, which was our inspiration. It's
that was probably the inspiration.
Interesting. Yeah. So I've done a bit of like investigation, and one of the things that is shocking me is there has been absolutely zero feature in terms of like you guys never appeared on the new release list on Steam.
No.
You never appeared on the popular new release. I mean, getting in the bestseller list these days is impossible, but I am offended at what has gotten on the new release list because like judging from reviews alone, right, which is the only metric the public has to go by, your game is doing better than games that appeared on the new release list, and I'm baffled and concerned what this means to those of us who have.
I mean, sales have been good, but it hasn't been like. I think the reviews shows would make you think the sales are much bigger than they are, and I also think maybe the price point might have to do why it doesn't.
Yeah, maybe Steam doesn't think it's worth putting up because they won't earn enough money on it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I have heard arguments from people before that low price point games can, it does affect your persistent or your presence within the algorithm, but like none of that is communicated to us as developers, and it is something that I'm trying to understand better so I can better navigate myself.
Yeah, I mean, it would feel like I also felt like it feels like we deserve at least being mentioned in popular or something because people obviously like the game. But
right.
Yeah, I was thinking the price point might be
because there were games that like had double digit reviews, and you guys are now nearing triple. Right, you're definitely on your way. Like it's gonna happen. Like no question. But it's something that really confused me and has concerned me. And I just want to know like what is that something you care about? Like I know a lot of people. Obviously there's a financial benefit to having a good feature in Steam. But I mean, on a personal level, was there anything that like did it hurt at all? Like not seeing your game appear there? When
we care more that players enjoy it.
Like disappointed. Yeah, I was a little bit. I felt like I've been extremely happy with the reception of the game, so it's been hard to take that away, for me at least. So like anything, like not getting on the Steam lists, is like, oh yeah, it would have been nice, but look at all those reviews, like at the same time. so I'm still happy, but I could be happier. I could be happier.
I was a little sad that we missed. They had this like tiny teams thing going on right now as well. On Steam, there's like a tiny team sale.
Okay.
And like we didn't know about it, so we didn't apply for it. And it happened like it was like a few days after we released Postvoid, so like, oh, that would have been perfect. And yeah, not part of that. And then there's like next week they're doing like, I can't remember, 3D Realms or something, and some other companies are doing like this FPS, like retro FPS fest. we didn't know about that either, so we're not going to be part of anything. So I feel like we're not featured. Yeah, exactly. We're just like feel a little bit left out, but
That's okay. There's always another sale.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think one thing that could be a huge part of the not showing up on Steam thing is because we didn't have any wish lists on the game before, obviously, because didn't
Hmm.
we didn't
Yeah.
Right, the surprise
show the
launch.
game until it was released. And I remember we got like first page with our last game Sea Salt, and we had a bunch of we worked like grinded wish lists on that game.
Yeah. I
So
remember
I
because
think
like that
that
was like
could
we
be
were
a
talking to
huge.
people about it, and like they were saying like, oh, you gotta have like a certain number of wish lists so that when it releases, it will go up.
Because the
Interesting.
game was pretty much invisible for the algorithm, I guess, before we released it. So I think that could be a huge part. So.
But in contrast, I mean, I appreciate that you guys are a very good example of like. I mean, a lot of developers spend a lot of time worrying about like, oh God, am I gonna be properly featured in Steam? And they play a lot into the Steam system and try and like condition themselves and condition their games in order to properly be positioned. But here you guys are still a success. Without having given any concession really to the existence in the algorithm. Yeah, that's really cool. Zedcraze has a question about Sea Salt actually. He says, "What led you guys to putting Sea Salt on Game Pass, and how has that been?"
It's been good. I mean, what led us there was we got a good deal with Microsoft, and I don't think I can say. I don't know how much I can say more about that, but I mean, money
Right.
was one of the reasons. And then, I mean, we got. I don't remember exactly how many sales we have for Sea Salt, but we like the amount of players who played the game once it released on Game Pass. Like, I think it was 5 times as much, or even like
Wow.
8 times what we had before. Just like the day it released, that many more players got to play our game, which is also really cool. It wasn't very cool though that the Game Pass version was kind of buggy at first. So like we had like 80,000 or something new players, and the game didn't work for the Game Pass specifically. So
But
that sucked.
it was for Game Pass, right? That it was the first game that was made in Game Maker for Game Pass, or was it when?
It was the Windows has this like new. I don't know what it's. I think it's called Xbox PC now, and it was hard to sync the sames between the Xbox and the games for Windows or like Xbox PC thing. But now it works. It should work perfectly now.
But like
the
connecting
thing
that
was just
question to Post Void, the reason why we can make a game like Post Void is sort of because of Game Pass.
Gotcha. You have the security or the safety blanket that lets you to get a little more experimental. I understand.
You're saying like, oh, because we're not too worried about like we success, like if or like it that it's the game this like Post Void became successful, but if we didn't have Sea Salt or Aquatic, like we would barely be able to live like a few months on Post Void.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And, yeah, so Post Void was like, because we had the financial security, we could make Post Void and risk a lot. Even if we wouldn't make anything, we could like, okay, we still have enough so we can grind up the next project.
Yeah.
Next big one.
Right. Earlier you mentioned working in Game Maker, and and again, not to jump back to no transmission so much. I'm very curious how you went about developing. Like, is this a? I mean, Game Maker is not known for 3D stuff. Is this like a classically styled? Like, is it even really 3D, or is this faux 3D with 2D stuff? Like how did you go about making the 3D environment in Game Maker is something I'm very fascinated to understand.
It's hard. It used to be really easy in Game Maker 1.4, and like the old Game Maker Studio 1.4 and the previous game makers, because they had like this D3D functions, which just did like some black magic 3D stuff for you. Basically, that's how we made No Transmission. But in Game Maker Studio 2, it's much more difficult. So I sat down and like really got into, like looked around on tutorials and what people had done before, and there was not very much to go on because a lot of people don't use Game Maker for 3D. But yeah, it is 3D. We're drawing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're here. We're still good.
Oh, you disappeared for a while.
Oh.
No. I was like, yeah. So I had to draw like vertices and stuff. I think it's real 3D. And
It feels like it.
I'm using vertex like shaders and stuff on the vertices, and I wouldn't recommend it unless you really like Game Maker, or I would like really dislike other engines. I only know Game Maker, so yeah, I didn't really have an option. I felt like, and it felt like a fun challenge. But I have draw scripts for every single kind of geometric like thing that's in the game. So I have like a draw a plane script, which is a mess. I have a draw. I have to like map out every single vertex by code in the game.
Yeah, that sounds like every a nightmare.
Vertex. Yeah, it's not very fun. It was kind of fun, but it took a very long time to do. But then you get some scripts. I mean, most of the things are cubes and vertices and like planes anyway, so don't need that many scripts to do it.
In No Transmission, really though, didn't you like, in Game Maker, you have to draw the map? I always thought that was kind of fascinating. You have to draw the maps out in the level editor, right? Like with.
Since this was procedurally generated, I didn't.
No. In like No Transmission. Because the maps there are like they're set. Yeah, so they're not procedure generated, and then like you draw them out right in the level editor, and then when you press it, I always never like understood how that works.
Yeah, basically you're using, since level editor in Game Maker only has X and Y coordinates, you can't like move around. Like, it's really hard to make 3D levels, especially with verticality in mind. So yeah, with No Transmission, we only did like the Doom levels. So yes, like you said, we just mapped out with blocks. Like these are the walls. But now, I mean, I'm so glad I didn't have to use the level editor to make 3D maps with verticality in Game Maker. That makes you want to get into procedural generation. Like just thinking about how that could, like, man, I could get nightmares just thinking about it. So yeah, I mean, I had to make a Z axis now because there's only X and Y, so everything that has to do with that is also like self-made or whatever. I guess.
It is kind of confounding to me. Like I'm hyper impressed by what you were able to do with Game Maker, considering it is not natively built for this kind of game. But you know, I know you said that it's the only engine that you're particularly familiar with, and it's an engine you really appreciate. But like, did you ever consider trying another engine? What like I would rather go through the pain of learning another engine than go through the pain of creating a first person shooter in Game Maker.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense, wouldn't it? I don't know. I'm very comfortable with Game Maker because I've been using it for 5 years now.
Yep.
And I just I feel like my workflow is so much. I'm lazy. I don't want to learn a new engine. I think that's what it is. And in my laziness, it's like when you go to you want to grab two cups of water, and you have one hand filled with something else. You're lazy. You don't want to go twice, so you grab 2 cups of water instead, which is harder than to go twice. But I rather do that. Like that's my mentality too. to
But
not
I
change
remember you
anything.
saying at one point, like, if we can't do jumping or like verticality, we might try Unity.
I said that.
I think so, but I don't think we actually would have. I think we just would have made a different game. But like, I remember
I
that was a
mean, I
conversation at
did get
least.
jumping to work. I did
That's
get
Yeah.
jumping to work.
that's the threat that gets jumping in post void. Interesting.
Exactly.
I like Game Maker.
No, hey, I've used our same engine for, which is wildly out of date, for too long. I've only recently started moving into more modern tools because it seems like an absolute necessity if I want to evolve what we make and grow and blah blah blah. And it has. I will say it has not been as painful as one might imagine. You know, sometimes making 2 trips is really that much easier than carrying 6 pitchers of water.
I keep it in mind. For the next project. Next project is going to be Game Maker, but after that,
After that, it'll be maybe another game.
It can be whatever.
Yeah.
Game Maker Studio 3.
Nobody thinks that far ahead anymore. Anyway,
Yeah.
I guess one of the last things I really want to talk about is I want to get a sense of the themes of the game. You know, like there's the intro, which is like a little vague, but there is some elements that like it kind of connects with, I think, like that like heartbeat raw, like the I don't want to get too like cosmic spiritual, but like that essence of existence, and the scream that comes after that begins, and then chasing the tranquility of the void. Can you guys talk any about that? Where did that come from?
We don't really want to talk
That's
about
okay.
too much the theme. Uh, like it's
I've already said too much somewhere else about it, which was like, yeah, I don't want.
Yeah.
It's mostly your ideas. I think the aesthetically and the story wise, Joseph is the guy to talk to there.
yeah,
And
and
it
it's
was your idea. I mean, we didn't even have the intro thing was very like last minute as well, because you were like, we should have some more exposition or something, and I was like, yeah, maybe we should, and you just made that super fast, and I had nothing to do with the intro cutscene. I just put it in the game.
It feels
I
very
think
pure.
like what you're going into is, I mean, I think it's awesome for me. That like I wouldn't want to say anything like how I wrote it or like how I saw it.
Right.
I'm happy like reading the comments and people, like it's somehow like people are being inspired by like the poetic aspect of it, as well as the mindless violence of it. And I think I'm happy with that. Like I don't want to say anything about it.
No, that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
It's just, it adds a beautiful little bit of depth to it. It speaks to some earnestness and honesty that in the artistic process that I really appreciate. And it was one of the things that endeared me to the game almost immediately. So you know, hasty decision or not, I applaud the inclusion. But I also really appreciate that it was game mechanics first.
Yeah,
you know, it was
game
never
mechanics first, definitely.
and I think that's one of the beautiful things about the game. And yeah, again, I can't compliment it enough.
One thing I can say is once the game badges or like Steam badges come out, there's definitely more info there.
Gotcha. Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. Good to know.
Steam badges, I think you can like, are there like stickers or like trading cards?
I haven't really understood how it works,
However you get them.
It's some blood ritual you make with Steam, and you get some little emoticons or something, right?
Yeah. It's like, I think the more you play it, and there's a chance that you get a certain amount of them, and then you can trade the cards.
Yeah.
You can trade, and like the more you've traded it and like bought, the more badges you can get, and then the more like you can unlock from those things. And yeah, they gave options to write like a lot there, so I was like, all right.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
I'm excited.
I'm very excited too. Guys.
I don't even. Right now, I remember very vaguely what I wrote, so
Good.
I'm excited.
Perfect. Don't edit it. Don't go back.
No.
Guys, it has been absolutely wonderful having you on. I know it is super late over there, so I don't want to like overkeep you. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you want to tell the people about Post Void or your other games or anything else before we say goodbye?
No, we're just really thankful and happy that people are enjoying it, and that people are writing reviews without us like even asking or anything. Just
it's been it's been amazing, really. And thanks for having us. It's been super fun talking. It's 2:00 in the night here now.
Yeah. No, thanks, you guys.
Oh, I kind of want to I want to challenge anyone if they to. I don't know if anyone is watching this, but for anyone that haven't beat my score, I got a pretty good one, and I'm very proud of it.
What's
93?
92,000.
92,000. Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm stuck at like 77.
I mean, like I was before release. I was too. Gotta say, it was from watching people play.
Before release, I was the better one of us, but now he's beaten me.
Subway says the highest was 89. Yeah, like it was crazy because I was top 50 with that 77. Now I'm not even in the top 100 anymore. So like, it's just gonna get more and more difficult.
Speedrunners are insane. They are insane.
It's really fun, like with the speedrunner Discord.
Right, it's so good. Yeah, and watching people like, oh man, it's been so fun watching people on Twitch play this because they go from like so confused, not understanding it, but loving it. But I've seen people enter top 25, top 10, from that process, and it's just like mind blowing to see the growth.
Oh, cool.
And I look forward to seeing some more as we go.
Yeah, I heard someone else talking about that. They were watching someone play Twitch, and it was like the same thing. I was just like, oh, this is crazy. Like a person that wasn't doing. They were climbing the leaderboards, and they just got up to like number 2 or 1,
Jesus.
like 1 or something.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, it's crazy.
It's
the pro gamer mode.
Yeah.
It
was fun talking to you.
Yeah, guys. Loved having you on. Please make another awesome game so I can have you guys back. Okay.
We'll try.
Yeah, we'll try our best.
All right. Thank you guys so much. All right, chat. I am gonna throw it on the thanks for watching for a little while. I will be back tomorrow at 1. We're gonna do some more Karen Simulator development, and then maybe some Unity garbage, and then I'll be out through the weekend. I'll be more on here. So, say goodbye. Thank you. Oh, I'll drop the Steam link one more time. Go pick up this game. It's very cheap. It's very, very good. And we'll catch you all later. Bye.
Good night.